shit, hang on. I look decent enough. I mean, shit. But anyway, time for the retrospect. But there was definitely a lot of dark moments that I really loved, especially the whole thing with Zinyak. He had a lot of scenes that just was good. It was really good. And honestly, at the time, I thought Zinyak was a fantastic character. Although he's a tongue-in-cheek Shakespearean, as an alien, that's pretty funny. It's not that funny in a bad way, but in a good evil genius type of way. And I'm going to continue this video by talking about other elements of the story I really loved. I love that shit. And just kind of hearing that, it's just like, this is going to be a darker version of Saints Row the Third. And it, kind of like a lose-it-all story, but not steal from the previous game. There was a lot of good stuff here. A lot of good stuff to cover. Hey, let's get down to it. Saints Row 4. This really brought back a lot of the stuff we missed from Saints Row 2, and the people that had Xbox that was able to play Saints Row 1. There's a lot of callbacks. First one, there's just a whole bunch of stuff. There was even some emotional stuff like Shondi mourning over Johnny Gat's body. That was really well done. And of course, meeting the old Shondi back by popular demand. I mean, like, this is a constant reference. It's just constant reference. The whole game is just a constant reference about that the fans, that they know about the fans split. So, of course, there are going to be superpowers. Of course, you become the president and you get into a simulation. And your own personal hell is the order, the false order that was created during the 1950s. The false flag of the 1950s. The false reality of the 1950s is your own personal hell. But you break through that and you start taking over the simulation. And you start saving a whole bunch of people from their other personal hells, which brings back a whole bunch of callbacks from the original first two games, but there's also a couple references to the third as well. And this is a constantly fantastic game. And it is the superpowers. Oh my god, it's just like it just brings back a whole new element. Like, it's about bringing back all the old elements, but kind of having something new, something creative, and making it awesome. Making it badass. And that is what makes Saints Row Saints Row. Not this, crazy over-the-topness, which is Saints Row, but kind of bringing back the old elements. That's why a lot of missions restrict the superpowers, because it's kind of like an attention to the detail of each mission of what made the old Saints Row great, so they had to pay attention to that, remove your superpowers. That's why a lot of missions actually restrict you from using superpowers. And it's basically only, the superpowers are basically only for free mode only. But the side activities are phenomenal. The platforming is just fantastic. I really loved it. I know there's a lot of shitty side activities in Saints Row 3, But no, they bring back a whole bunch of different variations of platforming, whether or not you want to throw and destroy electronic towers, or speed run through the simulation. You know, the platforming that the CID created, and avoiding all of the stuff and trying to collect as many orbs as you can. And then platform hopping, there's a lot of really good ones, and of course there's really cool ideas such as hot spots and tower hopping or tower climbing. Very good stuff, especially before you unlock all your superpower abilities with the clusters. And oh my god, actually just going and collecting all of the clusters is probably one of the main attractions. But before you unlock that, I think you should do all. My advice is collecting and doing the towers, because that was designed, you know, before you unlock all your superpowers. So before you unlock as high as you can, I know the getting all 3 upgrades of jump height and wall climbing. Before you do all that, do all the towers, because the towers were built to do before you get all the superpowers unlocked. And there was a lot of cool stuff, and it's just constantly fun, especially the dubstep gun. A lot of and then of course the monster truck, everything in the game. A whole bunch of variations. You can also get neon cyber monster trucks and crush everything, you know. And you know, of course, even though it's downplayed, they bring back everything that was good about car customization. So, but this game, I want to talk about the story, because it just feels like everything that was great about the first 2 is back, with the silliness of Saints Row 3. I really wanted to talk about the whole 1950s simulation that comes back more than once. It's a personal nightmare, because in real life, that was the grounding state. The 1950s was the grounding state after World War II, where America was desperately trying to find its identity. So of course they relied on a whole bunch of fake social climate, and they passed that as America's identity. And of course back then they were coming out with videos, I think it was on TV or radio broadcast or whatever, of how to be popular, everything that the outcasts of today's generation hate. Like, oh, the popular kids. Well, that started back in the 1950s with all these videos about how to do everything in America, and one of the constant ones was how to be popular. A whole bunch of fake image, and if you think that's constantly just a joke in Saints Row 4, no, everything in Saints Row 4, everything that the characters hate about the 1950s, both the boss, the protagonist, and I think Kinsey hate about the 1950s, is absolutely true. And that's one of the biggest reasons why the smart writing is back. And I'm going to finally go into what I absolutely love. I absolutely loved every simulation you go into. I kept laughing my ass off about Paul. And I was like, and I kind of just like, oh my god, you know, like, especially during the King Me quest, where you go back to Stillwater, I was like, oh my god, whoa. You know, like, this is just kind of bringing back old school, and of course, you know, going back to On Track and fighting Veteran Child again. Just all these callbacks, and of course, and I kind of want to talk about what I didn't like, was just the overuse of parody. There was only one mission, or two, at least 2, I hated, because it was going too far. The parodies and the references and the jokes were going too far, and when it was going too far was the whole Metal Gear Solid mission and the Evil You mission. You know which one I'm talking about. That one was when the references go too far. Everything else, every other mission is just glorified. Especially the whole thing comparing You know, the whole thing with Keith David is smartest thing in that game. If you didn't know, in Saints Row 1 and 2, the leader of the Saints, the original leader of the Saints, was a character named Julius Little, who was voice acted by Keith David. Well, Keith David comes back as himself in Saints Row 4, and he's like a character as himself in the game. So there's a whole bunch of references to all the characters are comparing him. He's like, you're just like Julius Little. And Keith David's like, I'm nothing like Julius. I like, there's only one passage between me and Julius, you know. It's kind of funny, and it was one of the smartest things in the game. I really liked this game. It really brought out what was Saints Row to me. It's just fantastic, especially all the superpowers and unlocking all the superpowers. But the second best collectible was obviously the audio logs, and I wanted to talk about a couple of them. Especially Johnny Gat's. Oh my god, and then the whole Saints of Rage thing was also one of the best parts of the story, and the best part of the game. I think Saints of Rage was hilarious. Definitely not taking the reference thing too far, like before with the whole Metal Gear Solid. But there was some really good stuff, and I really liked the bringing back Johnny Gat. Gat is back, because that was, it's not you, the protagonist, that's the spirit of the Saints Row series. It's honestly Johnny Gat, maybe. And maybe Kinsey or Shondi, maybe. But he's the character that's been in all 4 games, or all 5, including Gat Out of Hell. And, yeah. But, you know, a lot of the things in the game, it's just, overall, a huge callback. Especially a lot of stuff. And there's a whole bunch of references, there's a whole bunch of parodies that don't go too far. The only one that did was Metal Gear Solid, and that would be it. And there was I think the other thing that was unnecessary was the whole presidential thing. Although it was huge tongue-in-cheek, you know, filibuster, a lot of political jokes snuck in, but it was overall unnecessary, and I would have liked something else that showed that they were at the very, very, very height of their game. But of course, you just gotta keep rolling, you know? And, of course, the best part of the whole game, I think, was Gat coming back, although it kind of felt like very short-lived, but that's why they made Gat Out of Hell, I guess, which is going to be the next reveal, after Mass Effect 3, maybe. But I do think it was badass how they brought back a fan favorite, Johnny Gat. I think the whole thing about him being the world's biggest or best savant, Passant warrior, world's greatest Passant warrior, Johnny Gat. That's why he got abducted by aliens long before. And it kind of makes sense, and I really do love that shit. But really do gotta love those those comedic or for real backdrops and references to the previous games, like it was all intentional. It just makes you think. It's just fantastic. And I love it, man. I love that stuff a lot. And I can't thank the developers enough for making it a proper sequel. It's not about love. It's not about passion. It's not about peace. Those things they died on Earth. This is about will. So we have the will to kick that motherfucker's ass and take over his empire. Why do you think the protagonist said this is about will? So this is going to be the crossway section at the end, where I talk about the final chat he has, the final dictate. He says this is about will during the finale. Okay, I have a good theory. I have a good theory for the end of this video. Why do you think he says this is about will? And then at the beginning of Get Out of Hell, they use a Ouija board owned by Aleister Crowley, and his saying was "Do it thou will." Fucking Saints Row Satanic confirmed. Just kidding. All right. Next time, I want to make a very, very short video about Get Out of Hell. So.